actively encourage residents to report any suspicious activities or provide information that may assist in our ongoing investigations. Through open lines of communications, we can work together to identify solutions and build a stronger and safer community. We understand the concerns and fears that gun violence generates among our citizenry, and we assure you that the Daytona Beach Police Department will leave no stone unturned in our quest for justice and public safety. And at this time, I'd like to provide a few updates in reference to these shooting incidents that these investigators standing behind me have worked tirelessly on for the past several months in order to bring perpetrators to justice and attempt to provide closure for the affected families. And I would like to start with a homicide that occurred on January 9th at 624 Tucker Street. My victim was a 20-year-old by the name of Travis Hubbard Jr. Travis and friends were standing outside of the residence when a black Chevy Trax approached, a window came down, and several shots were fired at Travis, ultimately killing him. When this incident occurred, we had very little information to go on. But through the tireless efforts of these investigators standing behind me, along with cooperation from the community, I'm pleased to report that on June 23rd, the defendant, Javen Clayton, was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and discharging a firearm from the vehicle. We believe that Travis was not the intended target on Tucker Street. We've since identified who we believe to be the intended target, but I will not confirm their identity at this time, as this is still an ongoing investigation. On April 30th, there was another shooting at 304 Maple Street. During this shooting, 2 subjects were shot. Neither was life-threatening, and neither chose to cooperate with law enforcement. The victim the vehicle was standing next to was a black Chevy Trax, which turned out to be the same vehicle that Javen used during the homicide on Tucker Street, which ultimately leads us to believe that the Maple Street shooting was in retaliation for Tucker Street. On May 31st, in the 700 block of South Nova, another victim, Taj Butler, was gunned down while sitting in his vehicle in traffic. Devontae Smokes quickly became the suspect as he was identified within hours of the shooting. He was initially charged with fleeing and eluding, aggravated assault on a law enforcement officer, possession of fentanyl, and sexual activity with a minor, along with violation of parole. On those charges, he was held on no bond. I'm pleased to report that since that day, again, these investigators have worked tirelessly and have now, the state attorney's office now has enough evidence to move forward to a grand jury, which is going on as we speak. I was hoping to have that indictment by the time of this press conference. So I'm hoping by the end of the day, we can announce that indictment for the murder of Taj Butler. We've established a possible motive, but the investigation is ongoing, as we know others are involved. There will be additional arrests made in connection with this homicide, and once those arrests have been made, I will be more than happy to disclose the motive. I can confirm that this was far from random, and the shooters knew their target. On January 4th at 955 Orange Avenue, there was a shooting where the victim, Jaron Smith, was shot by Robert Blue. The investigators worked tirelessly, and Robert Blue was arrested the following day over in DeLand. There was a couple other individuals that were involved in this, and on January 6th, those individuals were involved in a shooting at 600 Jimmy Ann. Neither cooperated, so those victims will remain on our radar for the foreseeable future. And on May 3rd, 2023, at 412 Hudson Street, there was a homicide of a 16-year-old by the name of Freddie Cooper. This case is still a work in progress, and I would like to take this opportunity to make a renewed call for anyone with information about this case to please come forward with that information, and I would also like to remind everyone of how to do so anonymously. The Daytona Beach Police Department has an app that's available on both iPhone and Android platforms. Through that app, there is a tab that will allow you to submit a tip and remain anonymous. Also, you can text the tip by typing DB tips plus the tip information on your smartphone and then text it to crimes. That's 274637. Again, 274637. And then lastly, you can always go to the northeastfloridacrimestoppers.com and submit a tip that way as well. I would like to again recognize everybody standing behind me for their tireless efforts, as well as some behind the scenes. I want to recognize the Patrol Division, the entire Criminal Investigation Division, our Violent Criminal Apprehension Team, our crime scene techs, crime analysts, our ATAC unit, and our victim advocates for their tireless work over the past several months, as this has required a total team effort. To that end, I would also like to thank the Volusia Sheriff's Office, the Flagler County Sheriff's Office, the U.S. Marshal Service, and the State Attorney's Office for collaborating and partnering with us on both intel and information sharing, as well as providing the additional resources needed to locate and apprehend several shooting suspects. I would like to extend my sympathies to the family members that have been affected by this senseless violence occurring in the city, but also reassure everyone that the Daytona Beach Police Department remains committed to its mission, and we will continue to adapt our strategies, collaborate with stakeholders, and employ every available resource to combat gun violence and ensure the safety and well-being of all of those who call Daytona Beach home. And at this time, I will take a few questions.
Chief,
Yes, sir.
you mentioned that the shooting on Maple Street is possibly retaliation for the shooting on Tucker Street.
Yes.
So that's a possible motive there. What is it that you guys have seen in the other shootings? Is it the same thing, retaliation for crimes that have occurred before?
Some of them are retaliations, but when you look at the totality of everything, there are a few connections, but if you look at all of them, some of them, there is a domestic relationship there. Some of them, it may be a boyfriend, girlfriend type thing. They all have different issues going on.
Generally, Chief, would you say none of the shootings, fatal or injured, are necessarily random?
Exactly.
They all seem to be in some way, shape, or form
Target specific, yes, most definitely.
so that's tough for the agency then, right? To talk angry people out of taking action. I mean, how do you even begin then to be proactive against this kind of thing?
It is. It's very tough, and that's why, again, I give these investigators so much credit, as well as the community, because I think there's not a lot we can do to prevent some things, because obviously we can't be everywhere all the time. But when these incidents occur, community cooperation is big. It's huge for us. So just us being able to get out into the community, garner, a certain amount of information in order to, possibly solve what we have going on.
Speaking of community participation, knowing that we have new gun laws coming into play, I believe that's July 1st. Is there anything the department is doing to educate the community itself, as well as inside the department, on how that's going to start to play into all of what you guys are doing?
So I know the sheriff's office is going to run a safety class coming up in the near future. I don't remember the exact dates. We ourselves have not yet, decided if we're going to do the same.
Chief, does it stun you, any of you, the number of guns that are out there? So much so that I know families, loved ones are going to actually march this Saturday, a guns down march.
Yes, so I actually brought a flyer in reference to that march. This is being coordinated by several of the mothers that have lost their sons to senseless gun violence, so I absolutely 100% support them, and I applaud them for stepping up.
Chief, if I can recall correctly, under Chief Capri, there was also a wave of shootings that we thought were drug related, but it turned out, again, if I remember, it's been a while now, it turned out that it was shootings between people over music. Recently we have a music manager shooting an upcoming music professional. Is that something part of everything that's going on with all this gun violence?
I can't say that to be certain, Patricio. People get into arguments for various reasons, and then ultimately it leads to gun violence. It may be music, it may be drugs, it could be a myriad of things, but ultimately it leads to gun violence, and that's what we need to stop. That's what we need to stop. I'm gonna take a couple more and.
Chief, is there any updates on this, going back to the 16-year-old, because we were told it was random, this guy came out of nowhere. Is there any updates on that particular?
No, that's why we need help there. So we're reaching out to the community. Anything, you guys can, as you as well, any information you guys hear. I just read off the ways you guys can submit tips or the community can submit tips. So any and all help on that would be greatly appreciated. But I can tell you, we're still investigating that one, and I feel pretty good about it long term.
I think maybe it was your voice, but we heard something maybe at City Hall about better lighting, cameras in those certain areas. How's that come along? Is there anything more with that?
So we have gotten cooperation through the city as well as the housing authority, but as most things, it takes time. But that is definitely a need, especially in that area, for additional lighting and cameras.
We also wanted to ask about the information you put out about the guy who got the video of the woman over the dressing room stall. If you're familiar with that case. It's something that we're taking a look at. I just wanted to see if you could give us your take on that particular case, and also the aspect of it that this seems to be kind of a recidivism problem, because this guy was also under arrest in Georgia for a similar crime, and I also understand that recently in our area there was a guy who was arrested for upskirt photographs at a supermarket, and it also wasn't his first time doing that.
So I'm going to keep the focus on the shootings right now. I know we've sent out the report, so you probably have as much information on that incident as I have. I'm just glad that we were able to get him into custody.
I just want to double check, do you have any type of plan in order to prepare the department with the upcoming permitless carry law?
We may do some additional training. We may do some additional training for our citizens.
One more question, Chief, if you allow me. I didn't quite hear or whether there is any specific program like other agencies have done to go after probable possible illegal guns in the city of Daytona Beach. Is your department having some kind of program like that where probably police operations will target probably people with illegal guns?
So we do have a partnership. We participate in a task force with the ATF, and there have been discussions in reference to that, and operations are being planned, and I'm gonna just have to leave it there. But thank you guys.